then I can start it. So I will speak about hyperthermia against the varroa mite. Obviously, hyperthermia, we are using heat instead of chemicals to fight, to kill the varroa mite. And today's topic is, how can we use the varroa controller? We spoke about that in the first webinar already, together with the so-called duplex frame box. What is it, etc. I will show you throughout the next minutes. And also why we developed it. So we have basically two equipment, two tools, the varroa controller and the duplex frame box. So let me say, after coming back from last week's Apimondia, the World Beekeeping meeting, where I also gave a presentation about it, and there was a lot of interest actually from all over the world, I could say. Also, Australian beekeepers were there, which I was very happy about. We spoke with small apiaries, large apiaries, so 30 hives, 6,000 hives, and everything in between. And the hyperthermia, the concept, and also the tool works for all sizes. This was also a question. What size? All sizes. For micro apiaries, we have small machine, but for large apiaries, clearly you work with more large machines at the time. I can comment on that later. And then there was many questions were targeting here the right timing. I will also talk about the right timing. But in principle, you can say you can treat anytime, or in other words, as soon and as long you have capped brood. So this is, now the question is, you can say, well, we in Australia have capped brood all year round. Okay, then you can treat anytime, all year round. But now the question is, when is a good timing? I will elaborate on that in my talk here. The idea is clearly to have strong hives. With the duplex frame box, we have even the option to go for higher honey yields. And as I said, it allows effective treatment at the beginning, during, and at the end of the bee year. So also this during is very important, during the year. Whenever you see a problem, then you can act and do something against an increase of the mite population due to a reinfection from outside. You can act. And you don't have to compromise your wonderful honey that is already collected at that time, let's say. But this also requires, of course, monitoring the varroa population. You have to have an understanding how many varroa are in your hive at a time. Roughly is okay, but you have to have this understanding. So maybe for those who did not attend the last webinar, just to say it here clearly, the main principle of hyperthermia, it was not developed by me. No, I'm the inventor of the machine, but the main principle was found out in the 1990s from the University of Tübingen from Professor Engels. Professor Engels found out that the mite that is locked in the capped brood, the mother mite, the fertile mother mite, goes in there in order to reproduce. She goes in the cell just before the bees are putting the wax lead, and the metamorphosis of the previously larva, then pupa, starts. And the mother mites is then feeding on the pupa, damaging the pupa, and transmitting viruses. Now that's a bad thing. That's really a bad thing. Both are bad, but the virus, I would say, is even more dangerous these days. Why can I say that? Because there are experienced beekeepers, they are dealing with Varroa. They thought they can use the conventional approach they established in the 90s. Varroa came here in the mid of the 80s, I have to say. And they fail. And they said, how is that possible? How is that possible these days? Previously, I did a treatment and there were like 5,000 mites on the tray after the treatment. And now my bees hardly can manage 1,500 mites. So the reason is the viruses. But we come to that. So biochemically, what is happening here, if we heat up this brood, then heat shock leads to permanent cell damage. So the proteins are denaturized and kill the mite in some hours. So this is what's happening here. And this would happen also to the pupa if we would increase the temperature. So we have to be very careful here, and the machine has a super precise measuring system, sensor, electronic, etc., to not go into that dangerous temperature zone that would then also kill the bee pupa. So yes, we know how we do it. We do it since 15 years, and we can offer here this tool, so to say, for chemical-free treatment from the start, from the season, all the way through the entire beekeeping year. I guess this is clear to everyone, how the mite and the bee work together. But I would like to bring you two important facts of the biology of the mite. So here you have the egg and then the larvae, and then the mother mite sneaks in, then the cells are capped, then they are locked in. Okay, you can say, wow, they are locked in. But I would say, we know where you are. So we know where they are, otherwise difficult to find them. We know where they are. They are in the capped brood. And if we look later on the seasonal change, how many mites are in there, I can say 80% are in there in spring. So it's quite good to know where the enemy, so to say, is, where the majority of the enemy is, and then we can take it out and treat targetedly. So the second fact is a very important one, and that we will use with the duplex frame box later. So please keep in mind, in the cell, once she's in the cell, it takes the mother mite, the fertile mother mite, about 60 hours before the mite pierces the pupa, feeds from her, and injects viruses at the same time. So this is an important fact to remember and translates into some time that we have to react. So please keep that in mind. We will come to that later. We know where they are, and we have some time to react. So where are they? Or when are they where? So they are in the brood. We said that. 80% ready to reproduce mites are in the capped brood in spring. So after coming out of the winter, if it was brood-free or not brood-free, we also have many places where it's not brood-free anymore. Although we have the COLD weather, so the cold weather, which you don't have. the 80% in spring. So I understand now would be spring in your place. And that is, of course, the best time to have a first intervention. Because clearly, if we also know that the mite population reproduces exponentially, doubles per month, then this is an ideal moment to intervene. Or I could also say, if I kill a mite now, 5 months later, that's equals to 32 not available mites. So 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So if I would have not done anything, they go to 1 goes to 32. Later in summer, there's still 70% of the mites in the capped brood, and in autumn 60%. So it's always majority is in the capped brood. So capped brood is of high interest for us because it contains the mites. This is clear. So now early we have this annual treatment plan, so to say, with 3 main pillars. Needs to be adapted to your situation, to your climatic conditions, to your nectar flow, etc., etc. But it consists of early reduction of the mite population in spring. It consists of trapping and removing the mites in summer. This is our topic today with this duplex frame box, and then building up strong hives in autumn. That's what we just did, because that is autumn period here. I was checking my hives yesterday. They are all super strong, and there is a reason for that. Okay, so we can eliminate the mite ready to reproduce. This is clear, and we do it with heat. It kills the mite in the capped brood. We understand that very good. And then you don't have any colony loss due to the varroa. But we have more that we can offer. Yeah, we can, and I will show you how you can build new colonies, how you can optimize honey yield, no chemical stress on the bee, no compromise of bee product because of chemicals, and you have long-term management of the bee health. So there was also a question targeting the efficacy. So how efficient, how effective is this heat treatment? Well, we have a lot of experience from the practitioners, but we also have beekeeping institutes in Belgium and Germany, and they tested the machines under their conditions. Yeah. I was not involved. I was just sending them a machine, and they resulted 97% is killed. So one can say basically all or almost all the mites in the capped brood is killed with our approach. And how do we do such a treatment? There is a little video if you want to have a look at that later. Well, you go to prepare at the apiary, you place the machine, you fill in water. You fill in water? Aha. There are several questions regarding to this one. You fill in distilled water, and yes, it can come from an osmosis process, is whatever you have here, no problem. And filling in the water means something because you have to have proper humidity, humidity throughout the entire treatment, which takes 2 hours, as you know. And that answers the question, is the larvae, the open, uncapped brood, harmed during such a treatment? The answer is no, because we not only fill in water, but also control the humidity level, and the humidity level is responsible for the well-being of the open brood. And this is the answer to that question. Yeah, then you fill in the water, then you fill in the capped brood, then you place the sensor, In the middle of the machine, in this frame, you place the sensor, then you start the treatment, and then you, after 2 hours, you bring back the brood to their hives. There, you leave the space there. The bees are already waiting. They say, where is our brood? Where is our capped brood gone? Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? After 2 hours, they have the answer. Here it is back, and then you leave them to the bees. Here in our climate, in spring, it's still fresher, the temperature, and this bringing back of the warm frames is just giving them such a boost that is fantastic to see. And I do it on all of my stands. A spring treatment is super effective because remember the factor 32, you kill early. But there are not a lot of mites, but they will develop in a lot of mites. And so you kill them early, and that is super effective. And if I have stronger hive, one stronger hive or two stronger hive, and maybe one or two, they are not so strong yet, then I can also make sure that everyone gets the same amount of brood back so that there is an equal strength at their stand. So they're all basically equal. But the idea is that you give back the same frame to the same hive that you did extract. So this is such a setup. We go to the apiary, put the machine or the machines, then go behind, put the machine behind. You don't want to run around. Just one step, take out the frame, brush off the bees, and put it directly from the warm of the hive directly into the warm of the machine. There was also a question, how can we clean it properly, etc., etc. We always use this one here. This is a kitchen roll, and I put the kitchen roll under, not on top, under the water basin and another layer behind here. Then I make it a bit wet, that it's not flying around, and then it's easy to clean up after the treatment. We also have no electricity there, so we have a little generator. These days there are already batteries existing, but generator is the most economic, I would say. And then you can run the machines and then go to the next stand into the treatment there. So this is what's happening now in spring. In our climate, we have 2 to 3 frames of capped brood at that time. And that is very efficient. The machine can accommodate 20 frames. So let's say you have 2 per hive, then you can treat 10 hive at once. And the 80% is due to the fact that 80% are locked in the capped brood at that time. So this is the spring treatment. So this is what needs to be done now, if I understand that correctly, that spring is coming now in your climate. And then we go towards summer. I cannot convince you that you find a right time where there are 2 or 3 frames of capped brood, like in spring. In summer, you have a lot more, also in our climate. So the question is now, do I treat all of the capped brood, which is quite a bit of work, or do I find a smarter idea? And the duplex frame box is indeed a smart idea. We developed it in a way that is easy to use and allows you catching the mites and remove the mites from the hive. So now we think about our productive hive. The productive hive has brood in every stage and mites all over, let's say, phoretic mites. Those are sitting on the adult bee, and those who are in the brood, the capped brood frames. Capped brood frames, we know, is more than half, 70%, and 30% is on the adult bees, let's say. And now we take the duplex frame box, which accommodates 2 frames. And we put 2 empty frames in there and lock the queen on these 2 empty frames. So here, the bees can go through on each side, but the queen cannot go out. This is obvious. So on both sides is brood, we put it in the middle of the brood supper. And now we wait 12 days. In 12 days, the queen is laying eggs on both frames, and after 12, on day 12, they are capped. So they are capped. Now we can come, and they contain already some mites. Because here's capped, mites are blind, they just follow the smell. The only smell from open brood they can find is here. So they go in here. So then we are coming, then we take out these frames. Nice, full of brood. Here's the queen, take away the queen. And then you can take the complete frame with bees and put them both in a box, in a new box, and replace in the duplex frame box with empty frames. Don't forget to put the queen again, and then you put it in for another 12 days. So for another 12 days. And now, as you know, 24, 2 times 12 is more than 21. This brood and this brood is completely gone. They are hatched. And now think about the mite. There's an emergency situation. There's only 2 more frames of open brood. And on day 12, so the second day, 12, day 24 basically, there is only these 2 frames of capped brood. And now you do what I said, you take out the capped brood, and by taking out the capped brood, you take out the mites. And that is a pheromone trap. It served as a pheromone trap. You take it out, and you can then build again new colonies. And on day 12 and on day 24, you have to do heat treatment. Because these frames are full of mites. And now you will remember what I said before. Because before I said, it takes the mite 60 hours to pierce and damage the pupa. But if you are doing the heat treatment within these 60 hours, then you are good. And then you can say, although these 2 frames serving as a trap, trapping all the mites, although they are full of mites, they did not yet harm the pupa. And if I do a heat treatment the next day, I kill the mite, and the bees will develop normally. No damages, no piercing, no viruses. If I wait, so this duplex box method is propagated in Germany, Belgium, so many active people telling this is the new way to do. Fine, but what they miss is the second element. You trap it, fine, well done, but then what do you do with these 2 frames on day 12 and 2 frames on day 24? You have to either destroy them, which is losing money, or you heat treat it. And then you are good. And then you can say that although it's full of mites, they did not yet damaged the brood frames yet. So you see, this is a typical setup for such an action here. So you find the queen, you catch her for a short moment, then you place the duplex frame box in the hive, fill it with empty frames, put the queen in there, and then on day 12 and day 24, you take out these frames full of brood, and you can form new colonies. Make sure you have enough bees also taken out, and then you have literally taken out the mites from the productive hive by just extracting these 2 frames. This is how it works. And again, I have to say, it's super important that the capped brood must be treated right after taking out on day 12 and on day 24. And if you don't believe me that they are all mites locked in on day 24 in the last remaining open brood, then you can do a chemical treatment to this if you want a chemical treatment. You can use heavy chemicals if you want. I don't recommend, but you could. And treat this brood-free hive. And if you find more than 5 mites, you can call me. You will not find more than 5 mites. They are all in there. And I discovered that it really works super well when I was once catching a swarm. Someone was calling me, you know the story. And then I catch the swarm and had it, and I thought, how could I get rid of the mites that this swarm brings with him on the bees? And then I said, I don't want to use chemicals. I want to trap them. So I went to another hive, took an open brood, so larva, nice frame, and did put it in the middle of that swarm. The rest of the, as you do it correctly, was foundation for this swarm, because they are eager to build, etc., etc. You know better than I do. But in the middle, I had this frame of open brood. And then I was waiting until this brood was capped. And then I said, okay, that means if I'm right, all the mites that are sitting as phoretic mites on the adult bees of this swarm, they necessarily need to go in. And I looked. So I then took, after it was capped, I took this 1 frame and did a heat treatment in the Varroa controller. And guess what? I found a lot of mites. And at the same time, before doing the heat treatment, I did a chemical treatment to that hive, and I didn't find any. So it was obvious that there were no phoretic mites anymore, because the mite is eager to reproduce. It reproduces in the cell, it goes into the cell, and I created a pheromone trap with this 1 frame of open brood in the nice swarm that I could catch. And the same principle, a bit more elaborated, works now with the duplex, or is used with the duplex frame box. And this way you can collect the mites, all the mites from the brood that is born from the phoretic sitting on the adult bees on day 12 and especially on day 24. You bring them all into these 2 remaining frames of brood. And then I can again say, I know where you are, and take them out, treat them, and have a varroa-free productive hive. And I have a new colony because I took 2 frames on day 12 and 2 frames on day 24. So allow me to give you some advantages here. It's an easy way to extract the varroa mite from the productive hive. I think this is clear. We have a brood-free productive hive on day 24, just by taking out these frames. During the 24 days, the hive had less brood to take care of, and consequently, they will collect more honey. So when do I, living here in Vienna, when do I do that? Well, I'm living here in a very green district. I go out of my house and I see a wonderful linden tree. And when this linden tree starts blooming, I know this is the main nectar buffet for my hives in the entire year. I go and lock the queens because I want this linden nectar in the honeysucker and not in a very large brood nest. So 20% more honey for sure. Then another effect is, the dark brood combs of using them many brood cycles, they are also a source of illnesses, and you should change them regularly. So, but how do we do it? They are always full somehow. Huh? Not now. Now, when the duplex frame box day 24, they are all empty. It's super easy to take them out and exchange them for fresh ones. And I said it already. It's not only more honey yield that you can achieve here and a brood / varroa-free productive hive. You can create also new colonies with the brood out of the duplex frame box. The magic formula is 4 brood frames, meaning day 12 and day 24. 1 kilo of bees. If there are not enough bees sitting on the frame at that moment that you extract it, I shake a few more into the box and bring it to the new stand, the new location, and there they get the queen. That's it. And I have a super, super strong 4 frames full of brood, super strong hive for the next season or to sell or whatever. And at the same time, it's a good moment to assess the queen and ask if she is doing a really nice brood nest on these 2 frames, especially on day 24, you can assess it nicely, or you are not so happy anymore, or she's old or whatever, and then you can exchange her now because there's no danger, because this hive, this productive hive, has, after extracting these 2 frames of brood, 0 brood. So there's no danger that they will endanger your new nice queen. So that works very well. So this is what we did now, and answers also, when should I intervene here? This is what we did. So we did the spring treatment, bringing them down here. Now we do the duplex frame box. So we have no mite pressure in the summer months, and making the new colonies. This is clear. And you can take advantage of a late nectar flow. In our case, could be sunflower or something like that, or buckwheat, where you say, no, I don't have to do an emergency treatment. I'm good. My productive hive is really good. 0 mite. The colonies are developing well. And if I want to move these productive hives into a sunflower field or whatever, I can do it. No problem. While others are already waiting and scratching their head and say, can I still go for a late harvest? Yes or no, because the mite level is already very, very high. And I may endanger my hives if I still wait for a late harvest. So we are good. With that approach, you're absolutely good. So, and then this would be the third element. After I just mentioned it to have a complete picture. I know the topic was duplex frame box. We covered that. The autumn. In autumn, it's basically the same like in spring. You have again 2 frames, maybe 3 frames of capped brood, and you do your autumn treatment like you did the spring treatment. There is nothing more to explain except that you have to think about that now, if you remember, you have only, but still, 60% of the mite population in the capped brood, while it was 80 in spring. And what else is different? In spring, the bee population is increasing much faster, and now in autumn, the bee population is even going down. So you have to think about what can I do? What can I do about the 40%? That today, when I do my heat treatment, that are now sitting on the adult bees. And here, now you can choose 2 paths. One path is that you say, I'm using some oxalic acid at the same day, at the same time, full stop. Or you do it like I do it. You say, wait a moment. The principle of this duplex frame box was that we provide open brood and catch the phoretic mites, isn't it? So what I do is I do exactly the same here, except when I go through, I have to anyway find the capped brood, and then I see a frame. This frame has eggs. Okay. It gets a mark on the frame. And here we have open brood. Okay, gets also a mark. Here's the capped brood. So I take the capped brood, bring it to the Varroa controller, next hive. So I treat the capped brood and mark the open brood. Could be 1 or 2 frames in our climate at the autumn treatment. Okay, so I do the treatment, and then now we have the number again. 12 days later, I'm coming. Open the hive, don't look. I just take the marked frames. They are capped now. And I know where you are. I know where the 40% from last time, 12 days ago, are now. They are exactly in there. Remember my swarm? They are exactly there. And then I do a second treatment, and that's it. And I catch the 60% on September 30 and the 40% on October 12. That's it. And that goes very fast. It's a very easy intervention, and I do it on all 3 stands that I have, and that's it. And so I'm good. And that answers the question also, can it be used only heat treatment against Varroa? Answer, yes, you can. Unless, disclaimer, after this 2-time treatment in autumn, there is something going on that from feral hives, from neighbor hives where colonies are collapsing, that can happen. You have no brood anymore in our climate condition, and they bring a lot of Varroa mite. Then you have to do something that is eliminating the Varroa that are on the bees coming in. But if there's nothing coming in, then you're done. And then you did these 3 interventions over the year here, and you can respond here to uncontrolled reinfection as long as there is still brood. You remember what I said at the beginning. And you always stay below the threshold. That means your hives are not endangered and you are good to have a chemical-free environment for your bees. Okay, I think I'm talking too long. If you are interested, if you're interested to read more about that, here is the book. You can scan the QR code and download the handbook with it. And Anna.
Yes.
How many questions did I miss?
A few. So before we move on from the duplex frame box, Susan has a comment that she's using it, and I did find it a bit clumsy, and not rolling or crushing the queen was tricky. Is there a correct way, or should I pull the entire cage out and then remove a frame at a time?
Okay, what we do is we don't take it out. We just leave it in there and introduce the frames. And then at the end, we let the queen in and put the hand on top that the queen is not coming up. Then she runs down and then put the lid. So this is how we are doing it.
It was more about after I've put them in and I'm now going to put them into the Varroa controller. I just found that everything seemed to stick together. So trying to pull out the single frame was very clumsy. Is there a little trick to pulling out the frame? That's why I thought maybe I'd bring the whole cage out, but it was quite clumsy because there was quite a bit of propolis around.
Okay, maybe I can say that what is not seen here. Do you use a queen separator between the brood and the honeysucker?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then please leave it on there, although the queen is locked. The reason for that is because if you move away the honeysucker, the propolis or the wax can stick on the lid of the duplex frame box, and then it opens unintentionally and the queen is so please leave the queen separator, although the queen is locked. That sounds a bit silly, but there is a reason. Then, and if you see it on the lines here, I don't know if you see my pointer, in the middle photo, you see there was a queen separator on it, just to make sure that the lid is not opened unintentionally.
Yep. That would be good. Yeah, it was more getting the frame out while the queen was on it. I was worried I was going to roll her, but I think that if I'd put the queen excluder on, I probably would end up with a bit cleaner around it as well anyway. And maybe I'll start trying to use newer frames for when the spring gets there, because if they're a bit thick, so I found it a bit tricky, but it did work.
Yeah, it's always a bit tricky. Just take them out really slow and careful so you're not just rolling or squashing the queen. There's no other way.
There is enough space. The bee space is considered in the design of the duplex frame. If you, as Sven says, take it out carefully, it's no problem. Okay.
All right, so there are a few questions and they are all about temperature. So some of the points are, what is the temperature profile of the controller, and if there's any research in terms of when bee pupae are not cared for in the appropriate temperature. There's been apparently research that there is behavioral problems. How is the temperature maintained after the 2 hours of the treatment?
Okay.
And then there are some questions regarding how does it work with the sensors? How do we know that the sensors are working properly? And they were talking about thermocouples in the machine. So if we can focus on temperature.
I can talk about temperature. Everyone wants to know the temperature. What is the temperature? I understand somehow, but the success of heat treatment is not depending on the temperature alone. There are many factors. And one is the heat up speed. The other one is the temperature to reach. The other one is the humidity, as I said it, and so on and so on. But you can imagine we go like around about 7 degrees above the brood nest temperature. So this is this is what it is. The way how you reach it, etc., is really, really important in order to have a successful heat treatment. The whole setup in the machine, the whole measurement, they are super precise, calibrated. We are calibrating the sensors, etc. That has to be really done carefully. No, putting the capped brute frame in your baking oven will not work. Full stop. You need some more elaborated equipment. And the other question, that there is some impact on the heat treated. No, there are papers, and I would like to show you this one. They say that it can increase the lifespan of the adult honeybees. So you can find this publication, but I would say for the conventional beekeeper's practice, the answer is no. There is no effect other than really realizing that you have a much stronger hive than if you would not treat, or if you would treat with chemicals. Just 2 weeks ago, before Apimondia, I spoke to a bee health responsible person in Liechtenstein, so next to Switzerland, and he said he has done a course which a colleague of mine did there this year, and due to time reason, he could only treat one stand and not the other one, etc. And he's really regretting, because if he looks at the one stand that he has done with heat and with our plan, they are much stronger than the other ones. But yes, these effects of increasing of lifespan and so does exist.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of the thermostat, so
the sensor,
is there a backup inside the machine? How do we know that it's accurate, and how do we know that it stays accurate over a period of months, years, whatever?
Yeah. Okay, we have developed the electronic in a way that is, first of all, self-controlling all the time. And you can try it. You go take the sensor, take a lighter or a hot water, heat it up. The machine immediately will send an alarm and say overheat. Try it out if you want. Of course, without bees. And we have chosen an electronic that is stable over the many years of use. So there is no calibration needed.
Okay.
And we're doing it since 15 years and we know it works.
Okay. And in terms of the machine as well, they're asking about, are there spare parts available, like the humidifier system? What are the likely servicing needs for long-term use? So can you talk about how the machines are working over years?
Yep. The machines of the first generation are still in use and working. That is good. 15 years. The machine improved here and there. I think if you are not damaging mechanically the temperature sensor, then it will hold the whole life, which can be 10 years and more. In case there is a problem, we experience it 99% with the humidity sensor. It's tricky to measure humidity in a humid environment, etc. Spare parts are available. Anna and Sven have the spare parts. They can exchange by yourself, especially the humidity sensor. And the other thing is, we had it recently, the generator. If you have a generator, a very old one, then it produces an electricity that is not okay. So if you have an inverter machine, then everything should be okay. In case one day you have a silly generator causing a silly electricity over voltage, so to say, then the display of the machine will be blind and you will like, what is going on here? There's a fuse, a little fuse and the fuse need to be exchanged, and you open and you will find a spare fuse. Just put it in there and continue, but hopefully not with the same generator. But that is also something that very, very seldom happens.
In terms of the duplex frame box, there's been a couple of questions because
Yes, please.
the handbook and also in one of your videos in the website, it shows that you put a sticky frame and a foundation frame in the duplex frame box. But what you've explained now is a little bit different. Is it two ways of doing it, or have you
There
ever?
are two ways of doing it. If again, to my condition, linden tree just starts blooming, a lot of nectar is coming in, I give them a foundation. One foundation. Look, the easiest is I go there, open, and I find the queen. I find the queen on the frame where she just had a lot of eggs. This is a situation that can easily happen. And then I just take this frame, put it with the queen into the duplex frame box, and next to it the foundation. And on day 12, you will have difficulties to tell me which one was the foundation. So they are so fast. But if then the second run, no foundation anymore. For the second run, use, as you call them, sticky frames, or empty frames. Then the queen will immediately put eggs there, and they will not have this power anymore for developing the comb structure on the foundation. But this is beekeeping practice. You have to know what is the situation at your place and how the nectar flow is coming in, etc., etc. But to be on the safe side, use 2 sticky frames, put the queen on it, and that's it. But if you know that there's a lot of nectar coming in, you can also start with one foundation and one sticky frame.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another of the questions, it says that the manual mentions that the volume of capped brood should be of a similar size. Is this related to even the heat within the controller, or can you span many frames similar to a hive in a football shape?
Mhm.
As in larger in the middle and smaller.
Okay, no, it has to do with my time management. Yeah, if I have 2 of these frames, and then I have another frame where there's a little bit of capped brood, I don't use this one. I just use the big ones because I want to be effective in the management of my own time. So that's the reason.
Okay.
So it actually doesn't matter if you just put a small amount in at any time. I guess so. If you've got one that's filled with, half of its brood almost capped, some of it's larvae, and some of it is eggs, does anything get damaged, or is it okay to put the whole thing in?
No, it doesn't get damaged. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of the questions that we've had from the registration are about how often to treat. And of course, what you've explained there, and even the fact that after you do the 12 and the 24 with the duplex frame box, you have pretty much no mites. That unfortunately doesn't work for us at the moment.
Not at the moment, yeah.
That is not possible in the areas where the mite has recently arrived. And so do you want to talk, Sven, a little bit on how often to treat in Australia?
So yeah, of course, do your alcohol wash. If your mite load is under the threshold, don't treat. The bees easily can cope with a few mites in the hive. Goes over the threshold, then treat. So do not over-treat just in case. Don't do it every 2 weeks, just because you can. Stretches as much as possible. Every time you open up a hive, you stress the bees, and don't do it if it's not necessary. But be on top, do your alcohol wash, and make sure you know what's happened in your hive. How many mites are there? And in the beginning, when all the foul hives are dying, they're creating lots of mite bombs. And your mite count can go from 5-6 mites in an alcohol wash in 3 weeks to 200 or 300. Goes really quickly in some areas. So be on top, do alcohol wash, but do not treat if you don't have to treat.
And there is some questions here as well of if you have treated a hive, how long until you retest it and treat them again?
Aha.
Yes.
I could answer that question, yeah. So if you treat a hive, you treat the 2 frames, let's say, and then you have your screening board. Do you call it screening board, Sven? Or your tray underneath of the hive where the debris falls down? Yeah, okay, let's call it screening board. So you take it out, and then on day 3, day 4, you see already some mites falling, because bees are already born. And that continues until day 12, of course. Yeah. And then you see, aha, there are a lot of mites under these 2 frames that I did treat. And so you see, okay, that obviously worked. And then you have to add maybe 2 more days. 2 more days, then because the bees are cleaning the cells, and there could still be a mite fall due to this treatment. But from day 14 on, you can clean your tray, and then the effect of the heat treatment is over. So 14 days, I would say. Then you clean the tray, and then you can observe the natural mite fall again.
Yeah. And this should happen when the mite population is relatively stable. What I said in the beginning, when the mite just enter your area and after a few months the feral hive's dying, it could be very different. So what I said earlier, do an alcohol wash and treat when necessary.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another of the questions is, have there been experiences of bee premature death after being heat treated as a pupa? For example, significant collection of dead bees under the hive entrances in the 2 weeks following the heat treatment.
I can say something about that. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, do we have any dead bees? Yeah? The answer is no, we don't have any dead bees, but sometimes beekeepers report there are dead bees. And then we have to differentiate two situations. Situation number 1 is when do they find a dead bees, and how do they look like? So if they find them the next day or day 2, day 3, and they find undeveloped bees, so white, pupa, etc., then something went wrong. There was not the correct procedure how to treat the bees. There was some kind of overheating. So I had a case once where they were calling me and say, look, we have dead bees. I said, okay, when? Day 2, 3, okay. So what did you do? And then we had a long conversation on the telephone, and I always have to find out what went wrong. And then he said, but the strange thing is, we did treat, of course, several hives at once. The brood from the hives that we did hanging first have some damage, and the others no. And I said, okay. So what did you do? They filled the Varroa controller with capped brood until the middle. Then they reached the middle. Then they did introduce the temperature sensor in the next one, and then they continued filling. That is wrong. So you have to have the temperature sensor while filling, always on measuring the air. Only the last frame receives this temperature sensor introduced, and then you press the start button. So that is how it works. And then the other situation. Dead bees on day 10, 11, or 12. This is a completely different situation. The situation is that the bees are completely developed. But if you look at them carefully, you will find they are a bit lighter in color. they have a short body. The body is shorter than the wings, which is normally not like that. Then their tongue is out, and sometimes they do not have wings. So in this case, there is another effect behind, and they already had a very high virus load, and they have been kicked out, not fed anymore. And this is maybe looking not so good, because there are, I don't know, 200, 300 out of the many thousands you did treat. But those have been kicked out. And the good thing about the bad thing is that there are two ways of passing on the virus to the next generation. And one way is through the food of the nursing bees. And if the future nursing bees full of viruses cannot pass the virus on anymore, this will not be necessarily negative. On the contrary, it's a positive thing. And to everyone I was talking, they said, look, that I can see now in spring, everyone had a high varroa load in autumn, and no one did report that to me again in summer, because the virus, passing on the virus has been interrupted. Passing on the virus through varroa is still there, clearly, but not through the nursing bees, through their passing on the food. So we have to differentiate. When does it happen? Day 2 or 3, or day 10, 11, 12? And there's a different reason behind. The one is not correct operating. Second, virus.
Okay.
Some of the other questions is, what other treatments are being used in conjunction with the Varroa controller? Is this the only way? Is the controller enough to control or treat the mites?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about that, and then maybe you can add to that, Sven.
I think I talked about it, no? I said, with that approach, that is enough. We have to focus on the autumn treatment and think what can be done here in that blue arrow, which is 40%. And so what can be done here? I gave you two options, and then it is enough if nothing is coming in from outside. Yeah. And if there are collapsing colonies and they bring in a lot of mites, then you may need to treat again. But definitely you need to monitor. But yes, that can be done only with heat.
I can say the same. I'm using only the controller for our hives, and there's no other treatments, no chemicals, nothing.
It is true that some people are using it in combination with, for example, oxalic acid.
Yeah.
So when there is a huge amount of infestation, they use oxalic acid on the phoretic mites, and then they treat with the controller. I guess at the end of the day, every area is different. There are areas where they have an easier time with infestations, maybe because there's less feral hives or less managed hives around them. There are some areas, like our area has heavy density of feral hives, and also we have the hive beetle, which was not a great combination. And in that, there is a question here about what's the effect on the hive beetle, and I guess the hive beetle doesn't get affected by the controller. What we have found, but it's more like anecdotal, people that seem to find that when they treat with the controller, they have a stronger hive, and therefore it is less likely to be overwhelmed with hive beetle, or even to be attractive enough to the hive beetles as opposed to other hives that are struggling with Varroa. There is another question about if the heat used by the Varroa controller affects the wax of the brood comb and any of the wax structure, and if it potentially releases any contaminants from other treatments or pests onto the frames.
No, but the wax is not, of course, not affected, because the temperature is much lower. Maybe one can say, as a summary, also regarding the combination with other treatments, etc., etc. If I have only one sentence, let's say, I would say the Varroa control is a tool that allows you to kill the mite in the brood, full stop, anytime you want. And how often you want and how do you integrate that best, etc., is all up to you with your experience, etc. But you have a tool. And there are other tools to treat against the phoretic mites, but this tool, and also in nice combination with the duplex framebooks, helps you to targetedly kill the mite in the brood, which other concepts are not able to do. They always have to wait, brood free, whatever. And while you wait, you lose. That is clear, especially due to these viruses.
One of the questions is, how often can you treat without negatively impacting the hive? Can you talk to that?
Yes, of course. I mean, I have shown you a paper. The lifetime of the bees is increased. Yeah? But I would take the advice of Sven. You don't treat if it's not needed. You are not taking an aspirin because you may have headache in 2 days. That's not the case. So you control, you monitor, you know what is the mite load in your hive, you know the threshold for this round about 1,000 mites for a full size colony, and you should stay below that. And if you risk to come close to that, then you can do a treatment. So this is it. You definitely do not treat twice the same brood, but this will not happen, because after 12 days they are born and they are not brood anymore. Yeah, my advice is to develop a plan. You have a tool if you want, the Varroa controller and the duplex framebooks. Maybe you sit down, you think about when is a good timing. Now in spring, how many frames do you have? You give your colonies a good start into the season, so to say, and do a first treatment to kill the brood mites that they are not developing into a danger later on when you want to harvest your honey.
There's a couple of questions regarding the success rate. And I guess the difficulty with that and with the, like, to say, oh, we treated and we had, I don't know, a count of 60 and now we have a count of 30 and then we have a count of 15. Fantastic, it's working. I guess you want to talk about how the fluctuations were going?
Yeah, what I said earlier, I had an apiary, when I first found the mites, was 2 mites in the alcohol wash. 4 weeks later was 5. I said, oh, that's fine. I treat and then they're okay. And I did treat and went back 4 weeks later and I had 150, 200 mites, even if I treated 4 weeks earlier. So there's no way the mites can reproduce in a hive in this huge numbers. There has been all reinfestation from dying feral hives. Our bees robbed them and bring hundreds of mites every day back to our hives. So what I said earlier, do the alcohol wash, stay on top until in a year and 2 years after the first mites are detected, the mite level is more stable. Until then, you have to be on top of it.
Nevertheless, we have the same situation here, and then I walk around in next spring, and then I see there are 30 hives here all dead. Where did the mite come from? Okay, from them. So it can be feral hive, I understand, but it can be also not properly managed hives.
Okay, then let's say until all the feral hives are dead and all
Yeah.
the hives from beekeepers, they don't treat their hives.
Yeah. But again, it's a tool that you can use anytime there is a danger. Yeah.
So
So I guess the point is, in order to have like a proper log of success rate, we would have to have those mite bombs not happening. But I think in our case, in our area, it seems like we've turned a corner and that we can see now, and we're hoping it continues, that we can see now the mites actually reducing treatment after treatment, whereas before it was a bit of a up and down, depending on what was happening on the outside.
and now in springtime, of course, a few swarms will disappear. They go in the bush or in a roof and grow and getting infected with mites as well. And they will die in, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months and creating mite bombs again. But hopefully not in these numbers.
Another of the questions, or a couple of the questions, are around how bee clubs can share the controller and does it pose a threat in terms of American and European foul brood. And the answer with the clubs is there's different clubs having different approaches as to how they hire out. And I guess it's a little bit knowing how many members you have, how many members actually want to use the controller, and setting a schedule. So we are happy to talk to any clubs to see how are they doing it and what is successful in order to help everyone else and put out information as to how other people are using it.
And with spreading diseases, the inside of the roller controller is all stainless steel. So the spores of American foul brood is not sticking to stainless steel. And actually the frames touching only the 2 bars on the top. And they are easy to clean, wipe them with alcohol.
You
And
can take them out.
and there is no
we since 15 years.
transmit diseases.
Since 15 years, there was never reported any problem like that. And we also have beekeeping clubs. They have 3, 4 machines and they rent it out, and it's no problem. Okay, I think we did everything, Anna. And if there are more questions, they can be answered via email, I would
Yes.
say. Yeah. And everyone stayed now almost 1.5 hours. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
hope you liked it and you saw a bit behind this crazy animal of the Varroa mite. We have a tool, we have an approach. It needs to be adapted to your region, to your climate, to your conditions. Anna and Sven are ready to help you with it. And I'm super happy that they are so active in Australia. Yeah. Thank you very much and have a good evening. And okay, so then many greetings from Vienna, where autumn is coming, cold weather, but the bees are super fine. I checked them yesterday, of course, I couldn't resist. And I wish you a good start into the season and a successful season. And we can continue. We can continue anytime Anna is calling. I'm ready, and we can continue elaborating on your questions and your new ideas. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.